What's up, everybody? Curtis Wilkerson here with Inside Arkansas on the Pod at the Palace. Well, folks, this experiment with John Calipari and Arkansas basketball is not going according to plan so far. Not going the way we necessarily expected it to. Shout out to Big Blue Nation for reminding us of that constantly. Yeah, guys, we know. We get it. Reality checks aren't too much fun, are they? It's just been such a weird few months here, hasn't it? Like the excitement was at a fever pitch, anticipation was palpable, the expectations were high the entire offseason. Remember that Kansas exhibition? Was that the peak? I mean, I think it's a fair question to ask here because for whatever reason, since things got real, since the game started to count, it just hasn't clicked for the Razorbacks. The team hasn't clicked with the fans. The team hasn't clicked on the floor. John Calipari hasn't clicked with his team. From opening night to present day, something has just felt off about all this for whatever reason. Probably a combination of reasons, honestly. And I think most folks were rational and reasonable enough to have patience through some growing pains and understand the process. We get it. But the problem is that there's been no progress through the process here. They haven't shown us anything to tide anybody over, and that's what's been alarming about all this, I think. Like Razorback fans probably feel like they've been sold a bill of goods or a bunch of lemons. I mean, it's been kind of crazy. And like getting off to a slow start in SEC play, that's one thing. But reaching the John Pelfrey seat on the struggle bus here, that's another entirely different. With this 0-4 start, he's the last one that did it at Arkansas. This ain't what you signed up for, but it's what you're getting. Like stumbling against some good teams out of the gates, that can be rationalized. It's one thing, but just having your lunch money taken, by a bad LSU team, being the bottom feeder of your conference when you have the highest payroll roster, the highest paid coach, that's another. Not what you signed up for. And can we draw big picture conclusions based on what we've seen? I don't know, like for the Calipari experiment overall, like early returns sure aren't promising, but it's probably too early for all that. Is Cal washed? Is Cal cooked? It's easy to look at it now and be like, yeah, maybe, but who knows? I think, we'll see if he swallows his pride a little bit and, in the offseason, shake some things up with the staff, with some of his philosophies, with the roster makeup. Time will tell on that front. So for that, me at least, like willing to be patient, but drawing some conclusions on this season. Yeah. I mean, I think we're kind of reaching that point here. You're 17 games into it, well over halfway into the season, and these pieces, they're not fitting, and they're just not what we thought they were. It can still lead a pretty good, I think it can get you to a pretty good basketball team. But show me who is meeting or surpassing expectations on this roster right now that was so delicately put together. Everything needed to work perfectly if you're only going to have these 9 guys here. And it's been far from that. Dude Thero, I mean, he's exceeding expectations. He's been awesome. So credit to him. I think DJ Wagner is probably meeting expectations, maybe shooting it better, than maybe people anticipated there. So got that going for you. Boogie was real good for you early, but he's kind of been faltering against the real teams here. So some freshman growing pains. Nelly Davis, the top transfer in the country, not even close to what people expected him to be. Jonas Adu, same thing, not yet. He's making progress. He's getting there. He's starting to game by game look a little bit closer to the form that we expected. Had a double-double against LSU, but still it's not there. Not what you thought it was going to be. Trevin Brazile coming along in his role for sure, doing some things that he didn't do in the past, but he's also giving you about half the production in the stat sheet that you got, from last year. Carter Knox, McDonald's All-American. Was it reasonable to expect more than you're getting? I think it was. Big Z went from, your best player early in the season to unplayable now. That wasn't on the list of acceptable outcomes. Billy Richmond, is he quite ready in certain areas? Maybe not. So it's been tough sledding so far. And whose team is this? I think is the big question. Who's the leader? Who's the voice? We've been asking that quite a bit here lately. Seems like nobody wants to really lay claim to that because it's not a very good basketball team. This is not an NCAA tournament team. And I feel like so many of us hesitate to kind of call things for what they are because the keyboard warriors out there, they love to play the gotcha game. We're dealing with it right now, as Razorback fans out there who were excited about John Calipari, pumped about the roster, making those grand declarations. And you should have been excited. Had every reason to have high expectations. And it hasn't come to fruition right now. And you just got to sit there and eat it when everybody's giving you the business about what you said months ago. Not your fault that these guys haven't been playing well. It's not your fault that Cal hasn't done a good job coaching this team so far. But you got to lay on the grenade for it. Just kind of, it's part of the deal. Make no mistake, like the opportunities are there still. Believe it or not, like the wins needed to get you where you want to be. They're there to be had, but like this team hasn't played winning basketball all season against competent competition. They just haven't. Like the one good win they have was against Michigan, and they had the great comeback there, but they also pissed away about a 20-point lead, and we're very lucky to walk out of there with a win. They haven't played winning basketball against good teams, so it would be. It's fair to say, like, it would be quite the turnaround for them to just start taking care of business regularly over the next 6 weeks to do what they have to do to get to where they want to be. So, yeah, like if Arkansas turns it around and they go 9-5 in their last 14 games here and make the NCAA tournament, literally everyone in the country will feel differently than they do right now about this basketball team. Sure, that's how it works. Apologize to John Calipari and whatever, but that wouldn't invalidate any of the concern or the frustration or the criticism that's out there currently. That's called revisionist history. Listen, January 16th here, it might be too early to call time of death on Arkansas basketball, but they're circling the drain at the moment. Right. It's like, if you're pissed, you should be. That doesn't make you less of a fan. It doesn't mean you're not allowed to celebrate if they figure it out. It doesn't mean you aren't rooting for the Razorbacks to turn it around. Everybody wants that. It just means you're not satisfied with the product. And here in the present, you have no reason to be. And that's okay. That's okay. It's kind of crazy to see the spin zone. Like, it's been frustrating just to hear, some of the, like, the national narrative and just people really piling on John Calipari, giving him the business. And it's quickly going from a bunch of folks making fun of you to feeling pity for you. That's not where you want to be. Like, yes, there's 14 games left. This can get better. It could also keep getting worse. So it's like the fork in the road moment here, I guess. So I don't know, but one thing I did want to do before we get out of here is just react to a couple sound bites from Cal from after the LSU game, and then we'll get out of here. Not the whole thing. He only went about 7 minutes. We're not going to get into the weeds, if you can even call it that, of what he said specifically about LSU, and nobody cares about that. We moved on from the game. But I felt like there's about 2.5 minutes worth of pretty good clips there that we can react to, and people appreciated it the last time I did that. So we're going to do it again and see if we can provide a little bit of context as to what exactly is going on. So let's see what old Cal had to say here.
I got to do a better job with my team. We get up 12 again. This is the third or fourth game. We get up 12 and all of a sudden you turn around and it's, so we.
Well, that yeah, I mean that's true, and this has been a problem all season for Arkansas. They just got away with it against some bad teams early, and we were looking for reasons to like rationalize why it was happening. I know I did, like when they weren't putting away some of these teams early in the year, Lipscomb, Troy, Little Rock, some of those games that were just closer. You felt like than they should have been, and I kept going back to Jonas is out. Nelly's coming back from the wrist. Trevin rolled an ankle, zero. Like they're playing with 6.5 guys out there. So like they just don't have the bodies to keep their foot on the gas and put teams away. But it turns out that this was just maybe a microcosm of what has come. And I guess early on against high major teams, against good competition, Arkansas has fallen behind by 12, like Cal's talking about. And having to fight back, and they weren't able to get over the hump in most of those games. They did against Michigan, and I guess they came back on Miami. I think they were down double digits in that game as well. But for the most part, it hasn't gone particularly well. And then Tennessee was what it was, but they were up about 9 or so on Ole Miss. Up 9 at least on Florida, and then up double digits in this game against LSU. And can't seem to figure it out. I don't know if they get a little bit complacent or if the urgency drops or what it is, but it's not winning basketball right now. And Cal keeps telling us like, hey, I got to teach these guys how to win. I don't even know what that means actually, but maybe it's time to sit down and have that lesson because they've got to figure it out here.
Well, I thought we were prepared for that moment, but we just a couple turnovers, missed shots, and I watched the tape, but they outstrapped us. I mean, we did some half decent stuff, but not enough. Yes.
Okay. That's not what you want to hear. When a team's got their back against the wall like Arkansas does, and it's like, you're kind of in the fight for your life mode. Like if you ever were going to have a chip on your shoulder, you need to have it now. And then you hear that a team that's not as talented as you, and I'd say not as good as you, but I mean, they're ahead of you in the standings now. But they out scrapped you. Are you saying that LSU wanted it more? Like, it's not, I'm not disagreeing with what he's saying here because I think he might be right. I mean, I thought Arkansas played hard, but it did seem like LSU was kind of the aggressor from that standpoint. That's concerning. That's concerning. I don't
know. Just kind of there at the end, you guys set it back down to 3-4 points. Just what you're going to see there.
Did we get it to 2? No, 3? Got it to 2, I thought.
2.
Yeah, well, it's 2. 2's different than 3.
Yes.
So.
Okay. I don't like this necessarily. Like, are we cherry picking a reporter here? So you're holding a reporter accountable for saying 3 to 4 instead of 2. How about you hold your players accountable? Maybe that would be a better usage of your brain power there. I don't know, like that for whatever reason that just rubbed me wrong. And at first I thought he was joking, but I'd look at the body language there and it's like, oh no, hey buddy, it was 2. Okay. Like that's different than 3. Get it right. And it's like, okay, well, like the game has already happened here. We're just trying to ask you what the hell is going on. You know what I mean? So that one rubbed me wrong. Hey, like you're on the road. You've lost 4 straight. You're irritated. You're frustrated. Anthony he's just doing his job. And I don't know. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe I'm overreacting. It rubbed me wrong.
But just kind of what was, I guess, playing as you guys were going into those last, I guess, possessions, you go for quick 2, just kind of what was the plan? We
were trying to just space the court and get something, and Boogie got it going, so we just let him keep going. So he got us back there. We did not want to foul 5 or 1, but to be honest, they were all making free throws. 2 jumped up, he made 2. Damian made they were all making free throws, so I guess it really didn't matter. But we were going to hard trap, and then we put Billy off the ball. We did whatever we had to get it close so we'd have one chance to win the game. A turnover, flagrant, that was critical, but it happens. And I thought we played more joy than we have. I know I coach that way, but
I mean, wow, like let's have a parade because we looked like we enjoyed playing basketball for a change again. Like, my God, I understand the context though of, like that was a talking point after the Florida game where he's like, hey, we had the big dunk from DJ and that set the place on fire and it got the guys fired up and everything. But like, why was that the only play? Why aren't we playing like this more? So it's been a concern. So I understand why he said it and why he addressed it. Cause what he's saying is like, hey, we made some progress from that standpoint. But my goodness, like when you're 17 games into the season and you've got to like point out, like you got to find a spot in a press conference to be like, well, it looked like we cared a little bit more out there than maybe we have. And he's like, I know I coach more, Joy. It's like you're trying to fake passion or something. I don't know. But again, like we're looking for reasons why Arkansas is struggling right now. The fact, like I'm not mad at Cal for saying it, but like the fact that he has to or feels like he needs to even address that at this point, that's part of the reason why Arkansas is exactly where they are right now.
just, like I said, I got to do a better job. And told him after the game, I'm not cracking. So let's just keep going. Let's get ready for the next one. And we got a day off tomorrow and 2 days in Missouri on the road, another road game.
Well, yeah, I mean, but that is the mentality you have to take. I mean, I know people can kind of roll their eyes at that, like, hey, I'm not cracking. Well, you shouldn't. You can't. Like, there's no throwing the towel in for sure. But I just wonder, like, what's going to change, maybe, because it's one thing to just be like, we'll just get back to work, and then just maybe do the same things and then get the same results. And I know that they're making tweaks and trying different. I understand all that, but what are going to be the changes that get you where you need to be? Like, I was surprised they didn't change the starting lineup. And I don't know if it would have mattered if they would have started Trevin or John L or Billy or Big Z and Adu to get, hell, who knows? But just the fact that, like, you've lost 3 in a row, it hasn't been working, and then you roll out the same lineup there. It's just almost it's almost sending a message of this is just going to figure itself out. It's kind of the message that it sends, whether that's directly what they were trying to do or not. It just reminds me of a couple years ago. And if anybody from BBN is watching this, like, drop in the comments. I distinctly remember just people being so frustrated with Cal for, like, refusing to go. There was a 5-man lineup. I think it was when Shebe was there, but it was a couple years ago. That was just clearly the best unit that they could put on the floor. And he just wouldn't do it. Like, he wouldn't start it. And he just wouldn't put it out there for the longest, and it drove people nuts. And I hope that's not the direction that we're headed here. I don't know what the best 5-man combination is, frankly, but just something that kind of struck me.
From the floor.
Yeah, we did a good job and we rebounded. And at the end of the half, again, we fouled. We gave up offensive rebounds, and all of a sudden they closed the gap, and it's a 2-point game.
Yeah, I mean, you knew. I know we're not talking too much about this LSU game specifically, but you knew as soon as you got to halftime the direction that this was headed. And we kept saying, we're doing a watch party out at Brothers Meat House, and we kept saying it over and over. Like, Arkansas gets up 12, they're up 8, whatever. And it's like, okay, but they always do this thing where they just forget how to play basketball for a stretch of about 5 minutes. And that's exactly what happened again. And he's right. It's like a turnover here and there. Give up a couple offensive rebounds, missed assignment. There's a 3, boom. And instead of going into half, on the road, in control, double-digit lead, it's a 2-point game. And then right away to start the second half, LSU gets up and gets a lead. And Arkansas wound up getting it back, but it just completely changed the trajectory of the game. They've got to be able to close out halves and start halves way better than they have been.
I'm like, come on. It's another one of those. And my staff knows I'm ready to call a timeout on a 6-0 run.
Call timeout and do what? I mean, that was one of the things about this game. And I get it. Like, you do it to chill out momentum, right? And everything. And it's also strategic. I think he's going to address that of, like, when TV timeouts are coming. So Maybe I don't waste one here. Maybe I do, whatever. But so many times in this game, Arkansas would call a timeout, or there would be a timeout called, and they would be getting the ball with a half court possession. They'd be getting the ball with a baseline out of bounds with, 3 seconds left on the shot clock or whatever. And they did nothing with it. And it makes you wonder what they were even talking about during the timeouts. Cause it's like, they didn't draw anything up. They didn't have a specific action that went to a certain player to get a particular shot. Or if they did, they definitely didn't go out there and run it and execute it. They had a couple plays early in the game that they actually ran and got a good look for, but the out of timeout stuff was not good, not good at all.
And we waited because of one TV timeout, but they were switching some that kept people in front. And again, I thought there were some opportunities for us to get somebody else a shot.
Then why didn't you do it? I guess is my question, because I think that what was asked was like, for the longest in the second half, it was Boogie, DJ, and Thero that were getting the vast majority of the shots and doing all the scoring there. And so it's just a microcosm thing, but it's one of the things that I wonder about with Arkansas is like, you see John L. Davis look the best he's looked, in a Razorback uniform in the first half, being aggressive, knocking down threes, scoring on basket cuts, diamond guys, diving on the floor for loose balls and everything. And then it's just like, man, he's going to go for 30 tonight. But then he just doesn't touch it for extremely long stretches of basketball. And then it's almost like he's taken out of the rhythm of the game. And I know he had some turnovers there later, but it's like, if you just kept him in the flow, kept feeding your horse. He was talking about Boogie getting going, so they kept riding him. Well, why didn't you ride John L. when he was rolling? Like, you've been waiting to see that all year, and you just didn't get it. And it hasn't just been him. Like, there's situations where in previous games you get back-to-back buckets from Jonas, and then he doesn't touch it inside the arc for like 30 minutes of game time. It's little things like that you wonder, okay, like if you've got something that's working, like go back to the well maybe a little bit, and that could help. So like if you thought you had opportunities to get certain guys shots, like get them shots. And that's, like, I get it. Like it's a coaching thing, but it's also a player thing in terms of executing, or even if there's not a set play called, like that's a point guard thing from Boogie. It's like, you got to realize who the hot hand is. Maybe instead of running the offense away from John L 17 possessions in a row, you run it to his direction just to get him a touch. Or if you got Jonas going in the post, based on his role on the ball screens, that he sets a million of them for you every game, that all you got to do is turn and reverse it. And then he's going to have a post up for a dump in there. So it's just a situational awareness thing right now with the Razorbacks. And it's just a sign of a team that like they're not comfortable in their roles yet. And they haven't quite figured out their identity as a basketball team. It hasn't come together. And, when you're 17 games in the season, you're saying that, you're like, well, is it ever going to? We'll see.
But if you looked at my team, those were the right three who were shooting the ball. I wish we'd have got the ball to Jonas more. We had talked about it. We went in huddles. If they're open in there, throw it. But they were getting around the post.
This is true.
I told them, you got to keep them behind you. But, they fought. Both teams fought. Just we gotta finish off the game at some point. And
yeah, yes, you do. The sooner the better, because man, it's getting rough out here on these streets.
Again, they were 9 for 20 from the 3-point line. We were 8 for 22, but a bunch of those were at the end.
Okay, well, it's worth pointing out. I mean, since we're nitpicking Anthony for saying you got the lead down to 3 instead of 2, I will point out that you were the ones who shot 9 of 20 from 3, and it was LSU that was 8 for 22. So, like if we're holding people accountable for the stats here, you know what I mean? But oh goodness, man, it's just it's like a roller coaster of emotion with this basketball team right now, and just not going the way that you hoped it would. But I definitely didn't anticipate this. I don't know Even the Kentucky fans are taking victory laps right now, and more power to you. Like it's going very well for you and very poorly here for Arkansas. But I don't think even they looked at this and thought, well, yeah, like they're going to crap the bed in the regular season. Like that hasn't been his MO. Cal's, like they've been very consistently good in the regular season. He's had one season in the SEC where he hasn't reached double-digit wins. Like that's been the consistency. Like getting to the big dance and figuring out there has been a challenge over the last few years, but this is kind of fresh territory for him. The COVID year, they went below 500. But then you kind of have that, I don't know if it's a built-in excuse, but it's almost like you throw that one out the window. Maybe you shouldn't have. I don't know. But at any rate, we're going to continue to talk about it and continue to cover it. And hopefully this team starts to show some signs of life and get some things going. But until we see it, I don't know what's really left to be said. We might have to start looking ahead to the future a little bit. I don't know. We'll play it by ear. We're going to go day by day here and see what happens. But like always, man, I appreciate everybody for rocking with us over here at Inside Arkansas and staying tapped in. The support does mean a lot. And we're going to continue to do our best to bring you the best content we possibly can, even when the season isn't going particularly well. So I'm going to get out of here, but we will be back tomorrow to talk a little bit more about this team, the direction it's heading, and get you primed up for a game against a Missouri team that, they're coming off a road win at Florida, and they've already beaten Kansas in the building you're getting ready to walk into on Saturday. So I'm sure that one's going to be a blast. But I'm Curtis Wilkerson with Inside Arkansas on the Pod at the Palace. We will see you guys in the morning. Everybody have a good one.